Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm Ling Zhang. Here is a preview of some of today's stories. California is still storming away, leaving flooded roads and falling trees in Northern California. Authorities say there are now 12 fatalities. What does declaring a state of emergency mean for the state? How will it affect homeowners? An emergency management expert explains the ins and outs of the policy and what kind of insurance is there to help those affected by the storms. The storm continues to rage on in California. The latest death toll is at 12, including the 2-year-old who was killed by a fallen tree in Northern California.
In a press conference on Sunday, Governor Gavin Newsom said at least 12 people have died from weather-related incidents in California.
It has been a very sad truth. In the last 10 days, 12 people have lost their lives to these floods, 12 people. Again, more than have lost their lives, civilians, that is, to wildfires in the last 2 years.
One is a homeless woman who was killed by a falling tree branch in Sacramento amid torrential downpours and damaging winds on Sunday. Her neighbor, Joe Costa, tried to save her.
My tree part of my house there snapped off and landed on my neighbor's tent. So then I immediately went running down there and looked around for her, and I started yelling for 911. And the tree was laying on her, so I busted a limb off and cut open the side of her tent and pulled her out. And she was unresponsive, and her breathing was barely there.
Sacramento County issued an evacuation order in Wilton, an area south of Sacramento. The Santa Clara County Office of Emergency Management issued an evacuation warning for those living near Pacheco Pass River Basin and Uves Reservoir. According to data from poweroutage.us, more than 130,000 customers were still without power in California as of Monday morning. After a deadly week of weather, the state was still bracing for more heavy rain and snow to fall through Tuesday. Forecasters warned that northern and central California was still in the path of a, quote, relentless parade of cyclones on Sunday, promising little relief for the region. The combination of an atmospheric river and bomb cyclone have caused devastating flooding and record snowfall over the past week. According to the Department of Water Resources, the two main reservoirs, Shasta and Oroville, have, quote, a large amount of storage and are expected to have enough capacity within the system to absorb the precipitation from these incoming storms. In the last week, severe weather spawned violent wind gusts that toppled semi-trucks, flooded the streets of small towns along Northern California's coast, and churned up a storm surge that destroyed a pier in the beach city of Santa Cruz. The National Weather Service said the heavy rain and snow have already caused significant flooding and ground saturation, meaning the next storm to move through early this week would bring an additional flood threat. Signs displayed along freeways highly discouraged travel Sunday night through Monday. 5 feet of snow could fall on the Sierra Nevada mountains by Tuesday. President Biden declared a state of emergency for California starting Sunday night. He ordered federal assistance to help with local response efforts from the severe winter storms.
Earlier today, I spoke with the Deputy Director of the National Transportation Security Center at the Mineta Transportation Institute at San Jose State University. Professor Francis Edwards is an emergency services expert and commented on the deadly storms and declarations of emergency. Here's our discussion. Well, good afternoon, Professor Edwards. Thank you for joining California Today. Now, the White House made an announcement this morning saying that President Biden has approved Governor Newsom's request for a presidential emergency declaration. In a situation like this, where we have a state level as well as a federal level state of emergency declaration, how do we make sure there's no overlap or gap between the federal and state level funding and assistance?
So when Governor Newsom declared a state of emergency, he opened up the state's resources and also made a commitment to pay 75% of the cost of the damages experienced by public agencies in California. By requesting a presidential state of emergency, He was asking the federal government to assume 75% of the cost of the damages to public agencies, leaving the state with only 25%, which it would then share with those local agencies on a 25-75% basis. So by getting the federal declaration, it means that the state has less responsibility for the financial damage that's occurring to public agencies from the storm.
Now, why do some states also impacted by the current storm, like say Oregon, they're not getting the federal declaration of emergency?
President receives the request from the governors, and the governors have to provide information about the level of losses that they have sustained in order to qualify for federal assistance. And so at this time, the governor has only requested a state of emergency, and any governor can make that request anytime the state is beginning to spend public funds to repair public infrastructure that was damaged due to a natural disaster.
So for individuals and homeowners, what kinds of insurance should people get that would cover storm-related damages?
So for storm damage, an individual has to have a specific flood insurance policy. These policies are obtained through the same company as your homeowner's insurance, but the actual policy is carried by the federal government. Normal homeowner's insurance does not cover storm damage.
Now, how does the declaration of a state of emergency affect the insurance claim process? In other words, will insurance companies tell victims to contact government agencies for assistance before filing a claim, or will the government also tell people to file for a claim with their insurance companies before coming to the government for assistance?
You always have to file a claim with your insurance company first and get a determination about what they will pay for, and then you can apply for federal assistance if it becomes available. At the present time, a homeowner with a flood insurance policy would be able to apply for assistance through flood insurance, and there is no opportunity for individuals or homeowners to apply for federal insurance at this time because we only have a state of emergency, which only covers public agencies.
And what does it take to get a disaster declaration of emergency?
So a presidential disaster declaration requires, first of all, that on a statewide basis, there must be, for California, at least $70 million in public agency damage. The federal government uses what they call a factor, and today that's $1.77 per person. So each state's amount of damage is based on the population of the state. So for example, while California has to have $70 million to make the request, Wyoming would only have to have $1 million to make the request. So once the request is made, the president is advised by FEMA about the amount of damage that's been done, the kind of losses that have been sustained, and the types of assistance that would be reasonably needed by the state and its residents. The president then takes FEMA's advice and makes a personal decision on whether to declare a presidential disaster declaration or leave the declaration at a state of emergency. So that's a process that usually takes a few weeks, and we won't know for some time what President Biden's decision will be on whether to provide a presidential disaster declaration.
All right, Professor Edwards, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you stay safe out there.
Thank you for having me.
After 4 days and 15 rounds of voting, California GOP leader Kevin McCarthy is the new Speaker of the House of Representatives. McCarthy had to make some concessions to a group of Republicans holding him back from a majority vote. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the battle for the gavel.
Congratulations and Godspeed.
There were some heated moments among Republicans on Saturday leading up to McCarthy's victory. McCarthy went over to talk to Representative Matt Gaetz after he fell one vote short in the 14th round. Frustration boiled over for Representative Mike Rogers of Alabama. He was held back by a colleague. Rogers later apologized for losing his temper. Gaetz says he forgives Rogers for the late-night moment of high drama and looks forward to working with him. The two will serve on the House Armed Services Committee together. Republicans moved to adjourn for the night, but then, led by McCarthy, started changing their votes to stay in session. A 15th round of voting began as the clock neared midnight. The remaining Republican holdouts voted present in the 15th round. It dropped the tally McCarthy needed for a majority victory.
The Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California, having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives.
The end tally was 216 to 212, with Democrats voting for Hakeem Jeffries. McCarthy says Gates united the group, holding him back to vote present in the last round.
At the end of the night, Matt got everybody there from the point that nobody voted against the other way.
McCarthy thanked former President Trump. He says no one should doubt his influence.
And really for the party and the country, that we have to come together. We have to focus on the economy. We've got to focus, make our borders secure. We've got to do so much work to do, and he was a great influence to make that all happen. So thank you, President Trump.
McCarthy laid out his priorities for the 118th Congress. He talked about securing the southern border, combating woke indoctrination in American schools, and unleashing domestic energy production. Investigations into the perceived weaponization of the justice system and the Biden administration are also on the agenda. But some concessions had to be made by McCarthy to make victory possible. One of the most key being reinstating a centuries-old rule on the motion to vacate. It allows just one lawmaker to start a vote to elect a new speaker. The rule was done away with by former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. McCarthy has also promised some members of the House Freedom Caucus seats on the House Rules Committee. He also agreed to not increase the debt limit without spending cuts. The concessions will be added to a rules package and voted on. McCarthy's next big test as House Speaker will be getting enough GOP support to pass it. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
We're going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we got for you when we come back. Southwest Airlines is facing more lawsuits over its nationwide flight cancellations during the holidays. The newest lawsuit focuses specifically on the airline's services. Welcome back to California Today. I'm your host, Liang Zhang. San Diego is joining other lawsuits filed nationwide against Southwest Airlines for flight cancellations during the holidays. And this new lawsuit is focusing specifically on the airline's inability to provide services.
Southwest Airlines is being hit by numerous lawsuits across the country, with one from San Diego being the latest. California was one of the states caught in the large number of flight cancellations due to winter storms between late December and early January. The San Diego lawsuit says, regardless of weather conditions, Southwest knew or should have known it could not perform due to woefully inadequate staffing and complete inability to provide services as promised. The lawsuit was filed by two San Diego residents. Southwest said in a January 5th statement, there are several high-priority efforts underway to do right by our customers, including processing refunds from canceled flights and reimbursing customers for expenses incurred as a result of the irregular operations. We have a long and proud 51-year history of delivering on our customers' expectations, and we're committed to the all-important imperative of taking care of them during operational disruptions. In fact, on December 28th, we launched a website to assist customers with requesting refunds, and those requests are being processed. The mass cancellations began on Christmas Eve and continued into the new year. Many of the canceled flights were due to extreme winter storms and cold. By December 27th, Southwest had 60% of their flights canceled. By the end of the month, cancellations totaled around 15,000 flights. This led to a buildup of stranded passengers and airline crews becoming fatigued. Passengers reported they had missed work or school and spending the holidays with their families. Even though Southwest offered 25,000 frequent flyer points to affected customers, passengers filed lawsuits over a lack of refunds for the canceled flights. Cancellations are being finalized by the company as more lawsuits are expected.
Shen Performing Arts completed 5 performances at the War Memorial Opera House in San Francisco. Here's what some audience members said after attending one of the performances.
In San Francisco, most audience members saw Shen Yun for the first time. They say the performance was very well put together.
I love it. I think it's fantastically done. The arts, the costumes, the colors, the music, everything, the composition in itself is a beautiful piece. So we really enjoy it, and it's the first time we take our family to it. So it's great to see the daughters enjoying it just as much.
It's not the kind of thing that you get to experience, in our regular lives and kind of the rat race of life. So to me, being able to kind of be transported into these different times and different places and different characters, it just gives you the ability to really kind of escape from your regular life and be able to kind of be in the moment of in different times and places.
I have watched this show for about 3 times. I always like to enjoy the classic Chinese dance, and I like the spirit described in the show, especially those famous Chinese stories, West Journey, and the hero in the martial lands, and the Three Kingdoms. And also, I like the idea to fight for justice, to save the people who are wronged or harmed.
Under the Chinese Communist Party, ancient Chinese culture was nearly lost. Shen Yun's mission is to bring it back. Some audience members appreciate the message.
First, it's showing a piece of art that is actually, preceding communism. So, it's obviously something that's been rooted in China, and it's been very strongly carrying a message forward, that art, and it's everything that carries and comes with it has been born in China of the old days. So, and the second message is, in my view, the political theme that comes across as being strong. So, people not being free enough to expose their art, their faith, their beliefs are under pressure.
Just kind of messaging of the old Chinese culture and versus the new culture, and that was a surprise, but I appreciated that, and just the stories, and of course the dancing was great. But I like the messaging, and the songs were awesome, and the kind of the messaging behind that, the theme, spirituality, and just all ancient history. I thought that was really neat.
Some of Shen Yun's pieces tell stories of a time when people were once divine, and it's through meditation and spiritual beliefs that remind people how everyone lived in harmony.
I think spirituality is important, and I think it's there's a lot of like in America, in the United States, there's a lot of anti-Chinese kind of sentiment going around, and I think a show like this can kind of take that away and kind of bring you back to how really the Chinese culture really is, and it's not communism and all this fighting that we got going on, but more like could live in harmony if we tried.
Especially with the inability the last couple of years to actually go to live arts, and to be able to come to something like this and see just this art form at kind of at the highest level is pretty incredible.
NTD News, San Francisco.
For Shen Yun's next California performance, they will be at UC Berkeley's Zellerbach Hall starting this Friday. Now let's check in with NTD's Tyler Castile for an update on sports.
I'm Tyler Castillo, taking you through the California Today Sports Roundup. San Francisco ended the regular season on a 10-game winning streak, dominating the second half against visiting Arizona while earning the number 2 seed in the NFC playoffs. Elijah Mitchell's return from injury resulted in 5 carries for 55 yards and scoring 2 touchdowns. The Cardinals defensive end J.J. Watt played for the final game of his career and went out with a bang, registering 2 sacks to give him 12.5 for the season. 49ers finished the regular season with a 13-4 record as they get ready to play against the Seattle Seahawks on January 14th for the first game of the playoffs. 49ers 38, Cardinals 13. Justin Herbert was 25 for 37 passing for 273 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Austin Eckler had 4 receptions to set a Chargers single-season record with 107 as the Chargers lose to the host, the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson was 13 for 24 passing for 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception to help the Broncos end a 9-game losing streak within the AFC West Division. The Los Angeles Chargers finished the regular season with a 10-7 record and will play on January 14th against the Jacksonville Jaguars for the first game of the playoffs. Broncos 31, Chargers 28. Jason Myers kicked a 32-yard field goal with 4:34 remaining in overtime as Seattle clinched the number 7 seed in the NFC with a victory against visiting Los Angeles. Geno Smith completed 19 of 31 passes for 213 yards with a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Smith finished the regular season with 4,282 yards passing, surpassing Russell Wilson's team record of 4,219 set in 2016. The injury-plagued Rams capped the worst season by a defending Super Bowl champion. The Rams' Cam Akers rushed for 104 yards on 21 attempts, and Baker Mayfield was 13 of 26 passing for 147 yards and 1 touchdown. Matt Gay kicked 3 field goals for Los Angeles. The Rams finished the season with a 5-12 record and will miss the playoffs this year. Seahawks 19, Rams 16. Los Angeles gave up a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter as the Hawks' Trae Young scored 30 points to defeat the Clippers. The Atlanta Hawks won on the Clippers' home court for the first time since the 2018-2019 season. Kawhi Leonard scored 29 points in a season-high 38 minutes for the Clippers, who extended their season-long losing streak to 6 games. The Clippers are currently 21-21 and ranked 3rd in the Pacific Division and 7th in the Western Conference. Hawks 112, Clippers 108. And that's the sports roundup for today.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage. You can find it at ntd.com/California-today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. I'm Liang Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.